Remember I told you guys that my dad had multiple children. So I have lots of siblings. And of course, I love you, my siblings. Yes. So one of my siblings was living in Portmore. This was my older brother. So remember, I had an older brother that I was living with my aunt. Yes. And we both was attending the same high school. No, I'm not talking about him, because remember, I'm no longer living with my aunt, and he was still living with my aunt. Even so, now my older brother, which was living in Portmore and still living in Portmore, that older brother at the time, I think he was 18 or 19. Then he had a girlfriend. She was about 16 or 17, I think, or 15 or 16, one of them. She was pretty much young, but at the time, because I was 13, she seems to be old, you know what I mean? Now that I'm looking back at it, they both went to the same high school, so they both went to Portmore High or so. But we were now obviously spending time with them because it was now the summer holidays. So now my dad and my stepmom could go on tour with no form of restrictions, and not thinking, okay, how they're going to go to school and have to go home and who would be there with them. So no. So now we could be in Portmore with my older brother and his girlfriend at their house. And so we were there. So now we went to Greater Portmore at his mom, and I was in his vehicle sitting down and waiting for them to come. So now that gave me a little leeway, a little chance to quickly call my boo at the time. And we were talking, and I literally did not see or hear when my brother's girlfriend came around the side of the vehicle where I was sitting and listening to my conversation. Like, everything that I was saying, she heard it all, and I did not have any inclination or see her or heard her coming. You know, sometimes if you're walking on the gravel, you will hear their slippers like tapping on the gravels. I did not hear. So I think she tiptoed and come around to just to listen to what I was doing or seeing what I was doing, because I didn't want to come out of the car whilst everybody else came out. So I think that's what struck her, the alarm. So then, as I said, she came up and snatched the phone out of my hand whilst the guy was still on the phone. And then I was like, no, what happened? I'm talking to my friend. And then she said, nope, I'm going to tell your dad. I'm going to tell your brother, and I'm going to tell your dad everything that was going on. By this time, I think the man had heard and hung up the phone. I don't even know what happened. But instantly I started crying, because I know this was it. Mind you, remember, I'm getting away with all of these things for so long now, right? And I thought that I was being cautious, but clearly I was not. Yeah, now my phone, my second phone, had been confiscated from me. I remember her going to the toilet. So this is my brother's girlfriend. Her going to the toilet to go shower, and I was just panicking. I was flustered. I was worried, because I know that once my dad comes from off tour, that is it. And they would have already told him before he come off tour, because my dad would always call to check in, or my stepmom would always call to check in, or they would call to fill them in on something that may have occurred, probably not to do with me or anything, but you know, just to fill them in on what we were doing, like the events and the places that we were visiting, because we would always go visit everywhere. Like, trust me, my brother, he took very good care of us when we used to stay with him. He was very fun. So that I would give him. Apart from, of course, everything he told my dad. But yeah. So as I said, I remember going into the bathroom as she was showering, and I said to her, please, I need the phone. Can you give me the phone? I need to call my mom. That's what I said to her. And she was like, why do you need to call your mom? Call your mom for why? And then she said, no, I'm not giving you the phone, because I know what you want to do with the phone. But she took the SIM card from the phone while she was still in the shower, because she took the phone with her in the shower so that I wouldn't find the phone. My whole world was shattered. I felt discombobulated. I felt anxious. Anxiety took me over. I felt like I was going to go into a panic attack. And the reason why I felt like that, because I know what the outcome is going to be once my dad comes and arrives in Jamaica. Of course, now my dad would already been informed of this whole scenario, this whole, situation. and he could not wait to come off tour, to come to Jamaica. So now this would have been now 2 weeks left on his tour, because I think he was on tour for like a good 2 months. So now it would have been like 2 weeks now, because you know we get the 2 months summer holiday before we have to go back to school in September. That's in Jamaica. Some parts of the world, especially the UK, you only get 6 weeks. So that's 1 month and 1 week, or 1 month and 2 weeks. But in Jamaica, we get 2 months of summer holiday. So yeah, I think at the time my dad was on 2 months tour, back-to-back tour. So my dad had 2 weeks left on his tour before he had to arrive in Jamaica. So now the 2 weeks came so quick. I do not know when the 2 weeks appeared, but all I know, the 2 weeks appeared within seconds. Remember, we all drove to the airport to meet him, and whilst everybody was excited to go meet him, I was not excited to meet him, because I know what it was, what time it is. I knew it. As soon as we reached the airport, my dad literally gave me one fist in my mouth, and then he took the phone from my brother's girlfriend, and then he flung it in the wall, and it shattered. This was at the airport, you know, so you know that people are watching and all of these things. People are saying, no, you know, I'm not gonna say the name. They would have said, no, oh, you have to do that. How must you do that? That's what they were saying. Yeah, I'm talking in my dialect. Of course, I was in tears. I was in pain. My mouth was bleeding, all of that. So of course, I had to get water to wash my mouth and everything. But good thing my teeth were still intact. Yeah, my teeth, them never pop out. My teeth were still right in place where they needed to be. It's just that my lip was like bruised up and everything. Now I felt so small amongst them all. So whilst everyone was excited, my dad, they were talking, they were showing, and not like everyone was starting to ignore me. So I felt I was there, but I was not there. And then what I found myself doing was to small myself down, to not be in their eyesight, or not to be in my dad's eyesight, because I didn't want my dad to start taking out his issues on me now, or taking out the situation on me now. So because he already gave me that punch, I'm trying to stay away as much as possible from him. But even though I had to be around him, do you know what I mean? Just so that he wouldn't target and started battering and bruising me up in front of people. So I literally started smalling myself down. If they were talking, I did not get involved in the conversation. I felt so small. Like, I smile because, you know what, thank God for his grace and his mercies, for it's him that kept me throughout it all. Because had it not been for him, I do not know where I would be right now, honestly. So yes, now I would be starved of any form of sexual pleasures, because of course I had no loophole to get away with these things, because again, my dad is very strict, as I've been mentioning in the previous parts of the videos. I had no freedom, I had no leeway, I had no loophole, I had nothing. I was restricted in the things that I was able to do, or places that I could go even by myself. If I was to go to the library, I had to have people following me to the library. Yes, that's how deep it was living with my dad. It was very protective and strict at the same time. I loved to beat. The lashing had somewhat started because my dad was now taking out every situation on me. So now I'm getting beaten left, right, and center. There was no leeway for me, as I said. There was nothing. So because of this situation and my phone getting snatched from me, my dad started the lashing again. So I was starting to get beaten again. And I think because my dad was really, really disgust of me. I know he probably would not have admitted it then, but I felt now like I think he was disgust of me, but he could not say it. So what he had to do was to beat me every chance he got. Even if it was for the simplest of things, my dad was finding himself beating me. And it was to the point where I was thinking, this is literally targeting, like I was victimized, like for real. Like, I didn't understand the terminology or know the terminologies then, but obviously over time, as I got older and I'm a grown woman, I understand the difference with bullying, victimization, and targeting. So yeah, I was victimized and bullied, and even from my own dad, I was being bullied. But I didn't know it at the time. I just thought that he was just, because I was doing all these things, and, but even though in their head, in their mind, they still thought I was a virgin, because of course, them taking me to the gynecologist, and the gynecologist giving them the same report that I am still a virgin. Nothing has changed. And I know that, of course, that was God helping me through, because God knew that the enemy was trying to harm me yet again. My dad would just lash me for anything, even as something as simple as me leaving my underwear on the line to dry for too long. And it sounds extreme and it sounds exaggerative, but it is not. Like, literally, I was getting beaten for the simplest, smallest things. And I know now it's because my dad was disgust of me. He was, but he did not know how to say it. So he made it seem as if it was other things that was happening, that I was doing, that was causing his disgust or causing his disturbance that from him. So yeah, at this time now, I was living with my dad for about 8 months or so. And during those 8 months, there was never a day that I catch a break. If there was like a day, it would be like a probably good day, probably was in the best of mood, and it was just a day. Because usually after that day, the next day, it would just go right back to square one again, where, he started targeting me, lashing me for something simple,